All right, can you guys still hear me all right?
Yes.
Yep. Very good.
All right, well, we'll probably get a few more people to join us as we go through this, but let's go ahead and get started with this impromptu KAPiZoom 2020. KAPiZoom 2020. We got another person joining. Might get my mouse going here. Looks like Kevin's coming. So anyway, I know the
Hello.
welcome.
Hi, Kevin.
Welcome.
Kevin.
We're going to do introductions in just a second, and we are recording this.
Before I
Probably sticking up on YouTube somewhere, but
he went that he had a date for leaving, which was like April.
all right, here comes Wolfgang. Got our German introducers.
That's not
We got Ken Conrad joining in also. All right, hello everyone. Some good familiar. We got a full Brady Bunch now, at least on my screen. Hi, Ken.
Hey, Ken.
And for those just joining,
Okay.
we're just getting started, and we decided to record this. So welcome to KAPiZoom 2020 impromptu kite aerial photographer virtual meeting, and we kicked this off because of the Fano Festival being postponed or delayed till next year. So,
Mr. Wheeler, hello.
yep.
Hey,
All right, we're working on 4 stacks. Good. We got an esteemed group of kite aerial photographers right here on this one screen.
And me too.
And we're recording this, so be on your best behavior. Maybe there's not everybody maybe don't know each other, although I think many do, but why don't we just do some brief introductions, and we don't have too big a crowd, but let's start over in Europe and work our way around to the Western Hemisphere. I don't see anybody from Asia yet, so let's start with the furthest east person in Europe. Just give us your name, where you normally fly, and your favorite kite. So I don't know if that'd be Wolfgang or maybe it's
Wolfgang,
yeah, Sandro maybe.
Sandro, yes.
So Sandro, you're muted, but if you could, if you're not speaking, why don't you mute your local connection and then
just
unmute it. But why don't you just introduce yourself?
I'm just a little guy with too many big great KAPers worldwide. I'm doing something for myself just for fun, and Italy, nice country, good kites, good location for KAP.
Good food.
I know a bit some of the faces for direct contact, but I'm normally a lone wolf.
Well, welcome. And who would be next in Europe? Maybe Wolfgang?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Welcome.
Okay. Fantastic. It's a premiere for me to make such a video conference, and I think it's a highlight. Thank you for organizing, and I think this will be not the last one, probably the first. And yes, this year was very strange because of COVID-19. So, for example, we organized the worldwide KAP meeting on Fano, and finally it was me.
Yeah, you were the only one, huh?
Yes. There was another KAPer, Manfred Schwarz from Germany, but he told me I made KAP. I used my drone. So indeed, maybe I was one of the very few KAPer. I don't met any other, but if we find time later, I may show you my PowerPoint impressions of Farnö this year.
Yes, please do. And that's for everyone. There'll be some time for a brief sharing for if anybody wants to put up something on the screen, and you can share your screen. We'll plan on doing that. Well, welcome, Wolfgang. Let's see who else would be in Europe. That would be, I don't know who's east of whom, but maybe.
I think
Dave.
James is east of me, and probably Sue as well.
All right. Well, maybe Nigaloo, why don't you go? Give us your introduction. Can you hear us? It's like he's walking around. Kevin, can you do your introduction?
Hello. Sorry, guys. Yeah, I've just come back inside the house. I've just dropped everyone a message, but I'm on the neighbouring island of Sark at the moment, just to get away off our own little island, come to a smaller island. Yeah, so it's a bit noisy downstairs with loads of kids and stuff going on. I haven't been doing much capping recently. I've been on a bit of a photo downer this year. I've really not been that productive at all. But it's great to see lots of familiar faces here and a couple of new ones. Well done, Jim, for getting this together. Pierre seems to be in paradise, as usual.
Yeah.
He is. He
Right
is.
for some, eh? This is where I am at the moment. I'm kind of right in the heart of Sark. Yeah, there you go. View from the window. What I was going to do is I was actually planning on doing some capping tonight, and I was going to go out to the coast and give you a view over the Sark coastline. But unfortunately, the wind's just disappeared tonight, so it would have been a bit of a wasted effort from a kiting point of view. But
Kevin,
hey,
I think some of our American colleagues might not realise what Sark is actually like in terms of size and motorised transport. You might want to enlighten them.
Okay, so Sark is basically hasn't got any tarmac roads. It's all still dusty roads. The only vehicles that go around are tractors, working tractors only. Otherwise, it's walking and biking everywhere. And even electric bikes are still banned over here. So it's proper pedal power. Technology and Sark don't really go together.
And the reach of the tide is?
The reach of the tide, it's about an 8 metre range. It's less than Guernsey. It's but still pretty potent around here.
8 meters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's back home. 9 miles away, it's about 10 metres. Down in Jersey, it's 11, 12 metres.
Yeah. Must have some current too.
Yeah, nice little tidal zone here.
Yeah. Well, welcome.
So there you go. That's me. That's what I'm not really doing much of at the moment, is taking photos, but I'm very happy to be here and see you all.
Great. All right, let's go to Sue.
Yeah, okay. Again, I've not been doing much capping because with Ken I do a lot of stunt kite flying now, and we've got 2 ballets in operation. So the cap has taken a second place. When we went to Ventura, we went to the north and took some pictures of the most northerly lighthouse, red and white stripes. I put them on the Flickr and went to the one, which is black basalt. It's a black lighthouse. And then I think it was last year, there were a sand dance competition near me on the coast, and we went and we took cap pictures of the sand dart, and I put some of those on. And I brought my cap gear with me because I'm on holiday in the Pennines, in the range of mountains, small hills, compared to some American ones. Hoping to do some cap if I see something good to do. That's it.
Great. Well, welcome. Dave.
Yeah, okay. I'm down the south part of England, southwest.
Where is
the
he?
weather has actually been okay for capping lately, and the last 3 days I have been out flying kites and taking some photos very unsuccessfully. I seem to have lost the knack of getting the video working, and also of figuring out which way the camera is pointing. So yesterday I took 107 pictures, of which about 100 were pointed vertically down at grass. Very boring. Something else you should know, back in January, I started 37 radiotherapy sessions for prostate cancer, which has now gone by, and I seem to be perfectly okay. But let me just say, if you have not had a blood test of your PSA levels, get a blood test of your, this is not you, Sue, but everybody else. If you don't know what your PSA level is, find out. Mine, normal range is sort of 0 to 9, and mine was 93. So quite aggressive prostate cancer, but it's gone as far as I know.
That's
anyway,
great.
so that took
Excellent.
us 2
Good to
months
know.
and then after that, for reasons I don't think I want to explain, I set about making a Van de Graaff generator, which is actually behind me. You can probably see
it.
I made one when I was 18, which is back in the late 50s, a long time ago. And it actually got me a scholarship at Oxford. I showed it to the guy who was interviewing me, and he gave me a scholarship. I'm pretty certain I wouldn't have got in if it hadn't been for that. It didn't work, I have to say. It was, the problem is you need a metal globe, and if you're a schoolboy in the 1950s, metal globes aren't easy to come by. So we made a papier-mâché globe and covered it in silver paper. But the sharp edges just meant all the charge leaked away. This one, I'm still trying to get 2-inch sparks. I can only get sparks about 1 inch long, but it does work. Anyway, more later.
Great. All right, somebody's rejoining. Hold on a second. Kevin dropped off. He's coming back in. James, why don't you go next?
Hi, and Dave, thanks for regaling us with that story. We'll start calling you Nikola Tesla from now on, because I think you deserve it, playing with electricity. I'm about to disappear, am I? No, I'm still here. My name's James Gentles. I'm representing the Scottish contingent of the Kite Aerial Photography community. Recognise most of the people here, and I've been around for somewhere in the region of 20 years, not as long as some who I can see in front of me and have much more worn battle scars than I have at Kite Aerial Photography. But looking forward to speaking with you over the next hour. And I've got 2 things to share. I've got my last CAP session, which was back in December. That's how bad it's been here. And also, I'd like to share a few minutes with you about Simon Harbert, who died just under a year ago.
Yeah, we certainly do that. All right, let's move over to, I think, is anybody else in Europe? I don't think anybody else is swinging to Europe. I'll just kick off the United States or North America, and then we can swing way out to Tahiti and end with Pierre in a few minutes. So, so this is Jim. I'm outside of the Philadelphia area. Still flying kites just about every day. But 2020 has been a tough year on a number of fronts. I actually lost my dad in February to pneumonia. We don't know if it was COVID or not, but anyway, lost him. Shortly after that, a week later, I lost a kite out over the Gulf of Mexico with a perfectly operating cap rig and cameras and favorite kite. Line snapped and took everything out over the water. So I'm just recovering from that, and just started. It took me almost 3 months to source all the parts to rebuild the cap rig. And then the cam remote controller was the one that took almost 2 months to arrive at my door. So anyway, I've cobbled all the pieces together, and actually, where's my? Oh, I'll bring it up in a second. A couple things I just want to kick off here for everyone. I created a little poll just to keep us going. So I'm going to launch a poll. And you guys, while people are talking, you can kind of peruse through that poll. And then the other thing I was going to, and just to say that I have worked on this new cap rig, and I've just recently in this past week got the camera back in the air. So I'm resuming cap after a couple months lull here, but I have capped probably about 10 to 20 times here in 2020. And that's it. Let's turn it over to who wants to go next. And maybe Dave, you're still in the DC area, Virginia. You're muted.
Yeah, that's better.
Yes,
I'm still in the DC area, living here in Maryland, Germantown, Maryland. Sorry to say I have not been doing any cap the last couple of years, I think. When I was out in California for our last little Capica. Saw a lot of you, and then came back with a bunch of project ideas and started into them, and kind of have gone down a little side street on that. You know, I was, for those of you who remember, I was working on some a cap rig design with a laser printer or a laser cutter. And since then, I've built myself a CNC machine. I've got a 3D printer. I've joined a makerspace that has the full contingent of tools. So I've been having a lot of fun building things and making things. And I expect that one of these years it'll come full circle and turn back into some new cap rigs. But in the meantime, all the cap projects have been sitting around unfinished, unfortunately. But it's great to see you all. I appreciate you inviting me to this, Jim, and it's great to see everybody again. A little personal news, a little good news this year is my oldest son is going to be starting college, and he applied to a number of universities and got into his top pick, which was the University of California in LA, UCLA. So we're going to be sending him out there.
Out to the West Coast, yeah.
Out to the West Coast. Hopefully, you know, if things go well with all this COVID news, nothing has gone well yet. But he'll be heading out there in October, I believe. So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. All right, let's keep moving our way west. Do my geography. I guess it's probably either Craig or Mike, if I'm doing my geography correct. Who's further west?
I'm in Wisconsin, so I'm not sure. Mike, where are you from?
I think he's from
I'm in
Iowa.
Iowa, so I think you got me by a whisker.
So I do have you by a little. So yeah, I want to say thanks for getting this meeting going as well, and just to kind of get the juices flowing, because as others have said, 2020 has been just a bad year for many reasons, but certainly as I just checked that 1 to 5 cap outings box in your little survey, Jim, realizing, you know, my average for many years was 1 a week or more, and so to be down at, you know, halfway through the year and only have gone out a handful of times is pretty sad. So I'm, you know, using this opportunity to, you know, get the juices flowing a little bit again, and I appreciate that. But yeah, it's been a crazy year. I've lost a couple of family members, an aunt and an uncle. I've retired from my career with the city of Madison, and just a week ago had surgery to fix a hernia that's been bothering me for a while. So kind of, you know, some different reasons for not doing a lot of cap, but a lot of reasons to get back into it. So
Good. Well, welcome, and hopefully,
yeah, thank you.
Hopefully, for all of us, this will energize us a
Hi,
little.
Wolfie.
Okay.
Sorry.
How about Mike?
I live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and it's similar to like David, and haven't really done much capping at all in the last few years. But if there is anything positive that's come out of some of this COVID stuff, it's just a renewed interest and just appreciation for some of the more simple things in life. And several times been able to go out and fly, you know, without a rig, because my rig is kind of taken apart right now, but definitely a renewed interest in just getting out and just realizing how much you really appreciate a lot of the things that kite flying does for you. So along with that and a bunch of tinkering and other things like that, I've kind of renewing the interest in getting back out and coming up with another rig, you know, reinstating the rig. I did a lot of the quadcopter stuff for the last few years, and that was really a lot of fun, but it really seems to engage a whole different side of my brain anyway than kites, and I'm finding kites are just a lot more attractive right now and appealing. So looking forward to that. And I think later, depending on how much time we have, I was going to share some stuff on the dynamic spreader thing.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Just some things Jim and I have been doing, some of the fun kind of to carry along some of these things that we like to tinker with and toy with. Things that never end as far as development goes, and that's half the fun of it. So good. I really appreciate seeing a lot of you guys' faces. I mean, for years, seeing your names and stuff, and just really appreciating all the input. And things that we all have accomplished, you guys have accomplished, you know, to move this forward. It's been really good. And so to see everybody face to face like this is pretty cool for me. I haven't traveled. Hopefully, maybe in the, in the future, if we get this, when we get this COVID thing taken care of, there can be more in-person kind of things. We can get together. And looking forward to that.
Yeah, I think we all are. And we welcome Peter. Peter just joined us. We're just doing introductions, Peter, and we're covering people in the United States right now. So why don't you just give us an introduction to yourself and what you've been doing recently?
Peter Boynton. I live down in Georgia, and we have a roll-on, roll-off that capsized in the Sound leaving our port. So we've got this big 656-foot ship on its side with 4,200 brand new cars inside it that they're getting ready to cut up. So I've been shooting that from Jekyll Island and also from St. Simons.
All right, great. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
And let's see, I think we got as far west as Iowa. And so that brings us, I think, to the West Coast, which would probably bring in Ken and Chris. I'm not sure if you guys are what, Seattle and San Francisco, who would be further west?
Got me. I'll go. Thanks. First, James, thanks so much for being a leader, pulling this conference together. Great to be here and see all your faces. It's been an interesting year. So I'm in Seattle, Washington, and it seems like a lifetime ago, I encouraged Brooks Leffler to create some kits for his cap rigs, and that turned into Brooks.com, and as you probably all know, and 6 years ago or so, I bought his business, and he decided to retire for the third time. So that pulled me back into Cap, and it's been an interesting time. As a business, Brooks.com has really been displaced by drones, but that hasn't, we still sell rigs occasionally, and I like the customer base where it's turned into people who love kites. And, you know, some people, I mean, it's not people learning to fly kites anymore. It's people who have kites and love to do it. And yeah, there we go. Oh, thanks, Craig. I taught a class back in Illinois, and I wear multiple hats. We also print fabric. And there in Craig's, behind him is a sail we printed for him, and Craig was in my class, and we had a great time. It was in Oregon, Illinois, a really nice place. And if you'd like to do a kite retreat, the organization is called You Make It. Wonderfully managed, very, very nice, sensible group. We got together for a weekend and had a lot of fun. So my capping has been 3 blocks from here. Actually, we've been going over at least 2 or 3 times a week. And we have the fortune of living by a rather large play field, which is mostly empty this year. They're just starting the soccer teams and the baseball teams there. It's surrounded by high lights so people can play at night. The lights are off, and there's an osprey nest on the top of one of the poles. And so we've been following the osprey family that's moved in, that's set up residence there. And so we go over to, when the winds are, winds are good enough, we go over, lost a rig, and people always come around. You know, they're socially distanced, but they're so curious about what we're doing. And we have this view because, of course, we cap with video down. I mean, it's a sensible way to make sure you're actually aiming the camera where you want it to be. And we've managed to follow the chicks as they're a couple weeks away from fledging. I mean, I think that's a couple weeks away from learning to fly. So
that's great.
That's it.
All right, good. And Hamish joined us. Welcome. We're just doing introductions.
Yep.
And we're going to do Chris next, then we'll do Pierre, then we'll do Hamish, and then we'll kind of kick it off for whoever would like to share. And there's a poll up for those that want to take a look at that. And also just a reminder for those that just joined, we are recording this session. We'll probably stick it up on YouTube for people who want to see it. All right, so
like everyone else, thanks to Jim for pulling this thing together. It is a treat to see, folks. You know, I'm sitting here looking at Wolfgang and at Craig and thinking back, it's 1995 when I started. And I went to Craig for advice, and Wolfgang came to visit. I remember this great revelation when Wolfgang showed me a running clove hitch, because he went bloop, and then his kite was tied off. And I go, good Lord, how'd you do that? And I've been using it ever since. And I'm looking across these faces, and I see inventors like Dave and David and James and Mike, and think about all the sort of little bits you guys have put together that I enjoy using so much. And then just master photographers and folks like Ken, who I spent a month with flying kites in Florida. And it's just great seeing everybody. So I appreciate that, particularly in this drought of social interaction. You know, like Craig, I would, in the better times, had been getting out 40 or 50 times a year, something like that, and enjoyed it. I always imagined my kite flying as being divided into 3 periods, where the first period was sort of learning how to keep cameras alive and figuring out what kites were about, so forth. And the second period was scurrying everywhere I went. I would take my kite stuff and try to find images that were compositionally worthy, something I'd be proud to hang on the wall, and that was sort of fun. But my third phase, and it's the phase that I'm in now, is documenting landscapes, going to places over and over again and trying to get a sense of it. And so I've become this one-trick pony, shooting the South Bay salt ponds more than anything else. But Lord, I love it down there. It is a landscape in transition that's sort of visually rich, and my work can inform the restoration efforts, and it's just fun for me. I went back and looked at 2018 and 19. I only went out 5 times. I had gotten to where I just couldn't see. And that was a corneal dystrophy, something called Fuchs corneal dystrophy. And it was just a great disappointment. I couldn't compose anymore because I couldn't see the camera rig in the air. And so I went to this fantastic guy over at UCSF, Dr. David Wong, who did corneal transplants. And now I'm seeing like a hawk, one of Ken's ospreys. Yeah, and so it's really great. I've got 20/20 corrected vision and have cranked up my photographs again. So I was able to check the over 10 box in your survey. I'm now on hiatus, which is a great frustration because my photographs in the South Bay can only be done when the birds are not nesting. And the birds, particularly the snowy plovers, who are a species of concern, are prolific nesters. They do 3 clutches of chicks a year. But in about a month, I can go back out, and I anticipate getting out weekly after that, and look forward to it.
That's great. Well, welcome.
Yep.
Let's do Pierre in Tahiti.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Jim, for putting this meeting together. That's really nice, and it's not really a Capifano, but it's nice to see all of you. As you know, I'm based in Tahiti. I retired in December last year, and I thought that 2020 would be a great year to join some CAP festivals and or some kite festivals. And I was registered in Berck. I was registered for Cervia. I was registered for Fano, of course. And then there was one in Poland, one in Dieppe, and another Cervia in September. All of them are canceled. So I didn't do much CAP. The last CAP session I did was probably in January, and that's in fact the picture that is behind me. That's a small, small atoll in the Tuamotu called Whakarava, which is a very isolated island. There's barely any electricity in that little pension where I'm going. But it's really fun, and there's always a very gentle trade wind, which is really nice to fly kites.
Sounds ideal.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Hamish, you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you've been doing recently?
Yeah, I'm Hamish Fenton. I have been out kite flying this evening, actually, about half an hour ago. Just locally. Recently, I've had a hand injury, so I've not been kite flying. But yeah, I've been out a few times this year, just during lockdown and when I'm allowed out for an hour's exercise each day. Mostly. Most of my kite flying is done in the winter now. Previously, I used my kite for taking photos of crop marks of archaeological sites in the summertime. But for that, I've moved on to using a drone now. I'm not normally the most talkative person, so I'll struggle to keep the conversation going.
That's all right. Well, welcome.
Quality, not quantity, Hamish.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, we've done the introductions, and I think just that's probably one of the more important parts of this meeting, just seeing a friendly face.
Jim, there's Peter Boynton at the bottom.
Yeah.
He hasn't introduced himself yet, has he?
Yes, he has.
Yes, he has.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it.
Hi, Sue.
Hi, Peter. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Yeah, great. Yeah. Carry on, Jim.
All right. We're going to go right to take a look at the polls. So can you guys see this?
Yeah.
So we got how many times have you capped?
Mine got lost.
Can everyone else see it?
Yes. Yeah. Got it up
See
here.
the results, but I didn't fill it in.
Yeah, I'm just going to go over the results and then I'll stop sharing them.
The answer's not.
Yeah. So this gives an idea of, you know, there's a spread here. There's a couple people look like they're still pretty active, and there's a few that are on the 1 to 5, 0 to 1 to 5. So we got probably half the people in that category. What was your most used cap kite type? We got Rukukus, Deltas, Dobro, Flowform. So it looks like a pretty even mix there, probably based upon wind conditions. Do you use drones to perform aerial photography? How many of you have gone to the dark side? So it looks like 5 out of 7 are now active droners. And will drones replace CAP for you in the future? And the answer there is no. Do you plan to attend KAPiZoom2020? And it's like we got 7 yes and 5 no. So anyway, there's a little preview of just a quick poll. I'll stop sharing.
I have a question for the Dopero kite flyers. I'm mostly using Rokukus and the Sutton flow forms. And if I get a rock upside down and it wants to fly down to the ground and beyond, but gets stopped by the ground, I can usually sort of coax it back upright by laying out slack line. But man, if I get a Dopero upside down, I feel like I'm in major trouble. I have a hard time getting it upright again. Anybody run into that, you Dopero flyers?
Yeah, I ran into that. I had a Gomberg Dopero that when I first put it up, my first 10 seconds flying a Dopero, it was like, wow, this thing really goes up. And then it came down, just as easy. And I had to really play with the tail end of the Dopero to kind of keep it more of a drag in the back end to keep it from flipping over like that. You might remember early on, I kind of put a bungee between the lower part of the Dopero, a couple of the skids on the bottom there. But other than that, I haven't had a problem with it kind of just staying upside down.
I have some different experiences to share. I've flown my Dopero and it's been at 90 degrees. Looks like it wants to dive for the ground and doesn't. I mean, I'm on ice, but because it's so scary to have the kite turn from here to here and be flying and lifting my rig, but I've had sessions like that for 10 minutes or more.
Wow.
And I mean, I wouldn't recommend it, but I've never had, I can't remember ever seeing my Doparov turn and dive for the ground. So it's around 50 square feet. If anybody's interested, I'd be glad to. I believe it was actually a plan. I built it over 15 years ago, but a plan I found on the web. It's a wonderful flyer. I'm always experimenting with changing the tubes in it and doing other things. Here in Seattle, our average wind is only 8 miles per hour, 9 if I'm lucky. And 80% of the time I'm using, that's my lifter.
Yeah, need a big kite. How about Peter? You fly a lot of Doparos, at least you used to.
Yes, I still do. I have Jones airfoil, and I've never had it turn on me. I had the same experience that Ken was talking about. Often it'll be flying either to the left or the right, but stays up there, give it a little bit of line, and it rights itself back up.
Yeah, I got the actual Gomberg Dopero is actually on that wall behind me. I don't know if you could see it, but I got it stapled to the wall. The yellow and black one.
So, Chris, I've got a Dopero that was designed by Peter Bultz, and it's a pleek on the front of it, so it looks like a Scottish saltire. And yeah, you're right. If it starts going upside down, it's you have to give it not a lot of line. You have to give it all the line.
I've got two of Peters, and when it got upside, like, I guess it's an old dog, new trip kind of scenario. So I've got my Rokokus. I go out with 3 different Rokokus, and they do the lifting I need to do, and I'm comfortable flying them. So I haven't really spent that much time with the Doperos. But I did have one going to the ground because I just couldn't get it back around, and that's an unhappy thing for me.
Yeah, I had the same. I had one that would it was turning 90 degrees, and I was afraid it was going to crash. So I let some line out, and then worried that the winds were picking up. I was trying to bring it back down. As I brought it down, it would start turning again, and I had to let line out again. And I couldn't get ahead of it. It kept getting further and further out of control until finally it did turn over, and it landed over some power lines on our family farm up in Michigan. It was quite embarrassing. So that was almost my last session, I think, with the Dopero. It lost I lost trust in it after that.
Trust is big, isn't it?
Yeah.
I wonder if it has to do with the fact there's 2 independent surfaces, and then you've got the rigging, you can get that propellering kind of depending on how it's rigged.
Yeah.
I could see where it could, depending on as the wind goes up, you could end up with all kinds of weird interactions there. And
I think in a way it's a testament to its stability. That it's stable flying on the right orientation, and if it gets upside down, it's really quite stable flying upside down. It just wants to go to that angle, the equivalent angle below the horizon, but it can only get halfway there.
That's right. It's got to be on a tall hill.
Yeah, Jim, you've done that, right? You were flying over the edge, over the mountain.
Yeah, yeah.
In the gale force winds.
Yeah, I was out in Colorado. I was up in the Front Range there, and I was near the outside of Boulder, Colorado, and had that huge wind come up, and actually blew the kite at least 100 meters below where I was standing into the valley. I was looking down at my kite. You can imagine that, and it was still flying with a rig attached. That was an amazing day. Anyway, let's talk about. I want to talk to Mike. You want to share a little bit what we've been working on with the dynamic spreader and the adjustments?
Yeah, I can do that. So this is kind of the problem of being trapped away in your home with not a lot of creative outlets sometimes. So I started putting this presentation together, and it's like it kind of got out of control. So I'll try to keep it brief and run through the slides. It's actually a lot of fun to put together, but I don't want to put anybody to sleep. So just tell me if
yeah, go ahead and
move on some of this. Okay, let me get my.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll just give a little background. Mike and I have worked together for years with the dynamic spreader, which I use quite a bit for the levitation deltas, and but the levitation deltas always seem to have a tendency to go right or left when you get them from the factory. And so I was working with Mike to come up with some ideas about how can we use a dynamic spreader to actually correct for poor flying kites. So with that as an introduction, maybe Mike can talk about it. Yeah.
Now, can you guys see this?
No.
Not yet.
No.
You have to share
Just you.
Okay, let me go back and
put your mouse near the bottom, and there should be a green button that says share screen.
Okay.
If you move your mouse to the lower bottom screen edge.
Okay. And it said host disabled participant. Oh, you've disabled participants screen sharing.
Hold on a
So I
second.
think you have to maybe enable it.
Yeah, let me change. I thought I had who can share. All right, try it now.
Okay. Let me switch.
It's one of those many buttons on Zoom.
Can people see that now?
No. I think you have to choose what you want to share somewhere.
Okay, so I hit share screen. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah.
It should give you a choice if you have multiple.
How's that?
Yeah, I think that something's coming up.
Okay. Now let me put a,
Yeah.
this is a PDF. 'cause my computer doesn't. Okay, you got that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is, again, there's three main topics I want to cover, and I'll try to blast through them real quickly. But like I said before, that when you get onto a project, your rig and whatever, you like to keep tweaking it forever. I've had a lot of fun with this just because it's kind of an interesting thing to me to try to get the kites, to work in all kinds of different wind conditions. So several years ago, I think it was back in, well, before we go there, the agenda, I'll give a little bit of background. I don't know if everybody knows what the dynamic spreader is, the DS. So I'll give just a real quick background of what that is. And then some of the different modifications and iterations we've made on it. One of them is to add ability to add a little bit of yaw trim. So if your kite is wanting to fly one side or the other, you can do some minor adjustments of that. And then there's another one I've tried to expand it to, instead of just using the levitation delta, but expand that to other delta kites, even delta Conans, which is pretty fun. So I guess first of all, is everybody familiar with this thing we call the dynamic spreader?
Got one here.
Basically, it's a what's that?
I've got one here.
Good. Yes. It's basically for delta kite. It's the spreader spar that goes across the side. I was out flying my levitation back, I think it was in 2012, and the wind was just crazy. And it's like I really wanted to get a picture. And I had another smaller kite, and I just said, well, I'll swap out the spreader and put a short one in, about 4 or 5 inches short. And lo and behold, I mean, the kite characteristics changed significantly, but it went up like a rocket and just flew really well up in the air. So I thought, well, God, that's nice for super high winds, but then if the wind dies, then you fall like a rock. So the thought was to come up with some kind of a spring-loaded type spreader that would adjust its length based on the wind speed. And basically, by reducing the spreader length, you're shortening or increasing the wingspan, which increases or decreases the amount of pull and lift on the kite. And with the delta, the levitation, it's basically rated for in the books by 5 to 20 miles an hour. Have been able to fly with upwards of 30 miles an hour plus, and it's done really well, for taking kite air pictures and stuff. And again, it's not necessarily flying in the most efficient manner, like a really well-tuned delta that's got all the aspect ratios and everything nice, because it deforms a little bit. But you end up with a little bit more of a workhorse, especially for lifting payloads and cap. And it expands your ability to get into much wider winds. And let me see. Okay, so in the picture of it here is basically, here's the levitation in a normal low wind thing with the full wingspan. And then as the wind pops up higher, you can see that the wings pull in, and you get more of a streamlined aspect ratio. And the way this works, it fits in the normal, the spar pockets for the kite. And then you have the DS spar that goes across, and it's basically a telescoping kind of thing where it can move in and out. So you've got an elastic cord that helps maintain that tension, and where the wind has to compress against it to bring it down. And then something that we found that was really interesting for kites with this center flex stop, this strap that they have in the center that keeps the wings from bowing too far up. If you just have a regular spar that just compresses in and out, and you leave that flex stop point to grab wherever it ends up grabbing when the wind picks up, if that's over to the left or right at all, you'll end up doing the thing you don't want to do, is flying either left or right, and you can end up with some really erratic behavior. So came up with a way of rigging the thing so that as it compresses, it has a reference point called the tracking bridle that centers that attachment point, so that if the left side compresses, say by an inch or 1/8 of an inch, the right side will compress exactly the same amount, and try to maintain equal compression on both sides. And that's really important, especially in higher winds, because if you have any kind of imbalance or any kind of asymmetry, you'll end up getting some wonky behavior. And then this just shows a picture here of the DS removed. And then I'm trying to manufacture these a little bit at a very low rate kind of thing, but just to try to make it more friendly for people who want to travel. It collapses down where you can add extensions on either end to use it, to travel. And it also turns out that with using these extensions, you can adapt it to different types of kites, which is the thing that we'll talk about in a little bit. Just some additional information, if you go on Chris's on the discussion forum, the subject dynamic spreader for variable wind conditions has a lot of good discussion that's happened over the years. And then there's a dynamic spreader album that I have on Flickr that's got just a ton of old pictures and some newer pictures of what it is. So that's basically the dynamic spreader that we're going to talk about in a nutshell. And then want to talk about this thing that Jim had talked about, where he had mentioned a couple times, because Jim goes through DSs faster than anybody, and that's awesome, because I don't know of anybody who's more prolific at making, taking kite aerial pictures like that. I just really appreciate you. What's that?
And losing kites to be replaced.
Noticed, and I think Sue, you mentioned this way back when I sent one to you. We mentioned that your kite would fly sometimes, I think, to one side or the other, and I don't think we could ever really figure out what it was. And it turns out that I think my kite is really well balanced, but Jim had mentioned some issues with his kites that he was having, and I think Sue, you had the same issue, where in higher winds the kite would take off on one side or the other. Does that ring a bell? But anyway, Sue, you're muted. I'm sorry. Sue, you're muted.
Yeah, Sue, you're muted. And I remember Sue having that issue when I was.
I can't remember. I know the levitation went so high it was overshooting, so I've had to use a tail with it.
Yeah.
And I don't like tail.
Yeah.
But that's I had a cheap levitation knockoff, and that went sideways.
Okay.
It went sideways so much it landed on the other side of the river and swam back again. But not the standard. It was a Chinese knockoff. The proper one.
Okay.
Like I say, I can't remember.
And that's the thing. When you take the kites and try to operate them outside of their designed envelope, you can end up with issues, especially if there's any kind of, I think, stretch in the sails left to right, or slight imperfections in the way it's sewn, or in the spar lengths and stuff. And as you pick up in higher winds, you end up getting this behavior where it's going to take off to the left or right, kind of thing, which is not good. So the original, the way the DS is designed, this tracking bridle is meant to be centered right in the center of the spar, and then as you compress it, that keeps that reference point directly in the center. And that works just great if your kites are well balanced and everything's hunky-dory there. However, if you have a kite that has some amount of imbalance on it, like Jim's and others, you'll end up getting behavior you really don't want. So we tried to rack our brains in ways we could add an offset to the left or right, because we found that if you move that attachment point a little bit to the left or right, you can actually add a little bit of trim to compensate for that. But the thing is you have to be really careful, because if you add too much, as the wind goes up, you get a lot of force, and then you'll end up, looping the other direction. So the idea was to come up with a way of adapting this bridle connection so that you had a small range, and in this case, it's plus or minus 2 inches, that you can center the attachment point. Here it's shown in the center. Here it's kind of over to the left or right. And there's a bunch of different variations that Jim and I have been looking at. And I think this is the one kind of settling at, although we haven't had a chance to really fly with it much. And then attached into the kite, you can see the center with the traditional, just the stock DS. And then here's with the modified bridle attachment, where it's hooked into the center and then over to the, in this case, way over.
Yeah, and I could say I've been testing this also for the last few months actually with Mike, and the early prototypes have been very favorable.
That's good. So hopefully, Sue, I don't know if you ever want to dust that thing off and try it again. If you've got one, if anybody has one of these things, let me know, and we can talk about, you can get it retrofitted with this modification. And then, it'll behave a little bit better if you do have problems with it.
I have
still testing,
say about the dynamic spreader which you sent me, Mike, which took a long time to get here. I have made a small modification. Because I have a habit of losing things, and the end pieces, I just knew I was going to lose them. So I've attached this by drilling a very small hole in the attachment, the end piece, and a little bit of elastic. I don't know whether you can see it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it, you let go and it automatically clicks in place. But that way I can fold the thing up, and I know I'm not going to lose it now.
Yeah, I like that. That looks good. I was trying to figure out a way to do that. Where you take the elastic in through the center of the tube, but it was just crazy when you have that solid.
Well, I drilled a 1 millimeter hole in the end piece, and then the elastic's got a little sort of bit of cork which is pushed down inside there, so I can pull it out if I want to, but
okay.
But it automatically clicks in place.
That's nice.
Anyway,
That
great
actually,
thing.
That'll be something I'll look at doing that for some of the other ones, because I can see if you lose it, that would be not good, especially if you're out flying. Okay, so that's.
I have to scan the field very carefully to make sure I haven't left anything behind.
That center adjustment you had, how sensitive is that? Because it looked rather extreme putting that 2 inches off to the side.
It is. Honestly, I'm a little nervous going that far, but I wanted to put that kind of a range in there just to see what you would get. Again, this is kind of in the development phase. And the other thing, it's like the trim, if you're sailing around an airplane, when you add trim, the effectiveness of the trim is dependent on how fast you're going, or in this case, how fast the wind is blowing. So the trim is going to be variable. And if you do fly, say you have a lot of asymmetry and you put it all the way over to the end here, it may fly just fine up to 25 miles an hour, but if you get a gust much higher than that, it may keel over to the other side. So limiting that is important. And Jim, I don't know if you've had, how wide have you played with that?
Yeah, I've actually, I got a levee that's not flying that well. It kind of bends to the right. So I've actually got it to the full 2 inches to correct for that, and it flies stable. But if it gets above 30 miles an hour, I did have to do a couple grand loops in the sky, which got my adrenaline going, as it was, I had quite a bit of line out. And I like to fly high. Well, I was flying high for my normal standards, and it did a great circle in the sky.
Yeah.
So
this is the
kind
of.
I'm using almost a full 2 inches on that particular kite. But it's, I would say within that 2 inch range, it's doing what I expected it to do. The other use for this is you might be on a tight spot for a cap and you can't move, and you might be able to, I call it tack the kite right or left to actually get the cap rig over what you want to take a picture of if you can't physically go there with a normal flight. So this is the way to even intentionally get your kite to kind of go off center a little bit. anyway, that's another idea for it.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things where a little bit of adjustment may go a long ways, and you have to be careful what what the maximum that you put in as far as adjustment, because you're really trying to compensate for a kite that may not be optimal for flying in higher winds. So you can do some amount of adjustment and trim to correct that. We just don't know yet, how far to push it. And that's something, Jim, we're going to do is try to take your kite that isn't flying real well and try to measure some of the different things just to see if you can correlate why is it flying that direction.
Yeah, I've seen some of the stock wing spread tubes. The furl joint that joins the two together is bent a little bit, coming from into the wind. And I've sent him a letter on that, but I haven't really got a reply. So something to keep an eye out for.
So anyway, that's one of the little toys that we're playing with and having some fun with. And then, or any other thoughts or discussion questions on this thing, the offset bridle?
You said you're going to take this to other kites.
Yeah. So then, looking at, so I've fallen in love with this Stanley little bear kite, which I've had one for several years, and I've flown them in the past. In the summer here, like probably everywhere, the wind dies down to almost nothing, and really enjoyed that kite on low wind days or flying it on thermals. But notice that if you got up, it's rated, the little bear is rated to, see, the little bear is rated for 2 to 12 miles an hour. And I think he was pretty serious when he put the 12 miles an hour in there, because I flew mine up in higher winds in the past, and I think I ended up just stretching it, and then it just flew like crap after that. So it's a very sensitive kite for anything over 12 miles an hour in my experience. So I was always hesitant to really do that, fly it in very high winds. But if anybody's flown one of these, they do end up having kind of a surprising amount of pull for the size of them. They're pretty robust little kite as far as providing lift. So I had the DS one day, and I thought I'll just cut her down a little bit and throw it on this little bear, and it just became a whole new kite as far as being able to fly in much higher winds. So I took the DS, and this is another reason why I had the spreaders, the extensions pulled off on the end, where you can actually end up with a shorter DS overall, and then just fit it into this little bear, which I think the spreader is 36 inches. You can see laid on top of a levitation. It's quite a bit smaller. I think it's a 6.5 foot wingspan versus the 9 foot. But you can see when flying it, it's the good old little bear, that has its normal envelope or profile. And then in much higher winds, it backs down like the Delta, like the levitation, and flies really well for this. So I haven't had a chance to put a camera on it yet, but this is kind of becoming my, have it in the trunk of my car, go-to kite for just getting out and enjoying things. So it's promising to be able to adapt that, even with the kite that's really sensitive to stretching and stuff. And since I've flown it in higher winds, I take it back and run it in low winds, and it still flies really well. So I haven't damaged the sail at all. There's enough compliance in the dynamic spreader that it kind of it saves the kite, I think, from being damaged at this point anyway. So that's kind of exciting, kind of fun to do. And then I've got the DS that you guys have with with the tracking bridle and all that. Well, I won't say it's really heavy, but it's probably heavier than you would normally want to fly with the little bear. So I've played around with just taking much smaller spars in a real simple locking mechanism for the slides. Gotten rid of the tracking bridle because the little bear doesn't have that flex strap in the middle. So it's basically the spreader just spans all the way across the kite. So you can have a much simpler kind of a DS with no tracking bridle, very lightweight. So there's another model I'm working on for that that's just real simple for smaller kites like that. And then I really like Delta Conans too, just because they're a combination of a box kite and a Delta, so you get a lot of the high wind lift and some of the stability things that you get with the box aspect, and then the wings add the extra dimension to it. I've got a Into the Wind Alpine, which is a really beautiful 10-foot kite that I've flown quite a bit in CAP in the past, but have been hesitant to take it out in much over 20-mile-an-hour winds just because it's such a big kite and it deforms pretty bad when you get in really high winds. I thought, well, how could you maybe adapt this DS to work with that? There's a little bit of a complication there because you can't just put the DS in as is because with a flex stop, because there's no center point to reference it. And also when you start decreasing the wingspan of a Delta Conan, it collapses the center portion, which is the box, and you lose all the efficiency of that. So I thought, well, is there a way to take, to fit a DS into this? Can you still maintain a real rigid box structure in the core? And what I mean by that is putting a fixed spreader, spanning that across here where the regular spreader goes, and then adding another one across the bottom, so that you end up basically with a rigid box frame on the back of the kite that will stay fully extended. And then after that, you end up attaching the DS itself into it, on top of it. And then with that forward spreader, that fixed spreader that's attached there, there's a little attachment point for the tracking bridle. So looking at that,
that's great.
with it a little more expanded, you've got the spreader and then you've got the reference point. And so I was able to fly that, and it flies really nice. I haven't had it like in 30-mile-an-hour winds. I think I was, from what the weatherman says, 25. It didn't feel like 30, but it felt more, higher than I would normally feel comfortable with. And it behaved really nice. You had the characteristic box in the middle stayed intact, so you had that functioning. And then as the winds would pick up, the wings would collapse on the side. It's just kind of a neat dynamic there. So a lot more work to do with that, but I'm encouraged that this could be another little tool in the arsenal for being able to have a kite to fly in higher winds.
Oh, it looks good.
So then the way the product line, if you will, is going. There's the core DS that you can use for the little bear. Then you have various types of extensions you can put on for the levitation. Pierre, I think you wanted to use it for an R8, which I think would be awesome. I'd really like to see how that behaves in R8. And then the Delta Conan extensions, and then whatever else, basically any kind of a Delta I think it could work with. Does the R8 have that flex strap in the middle, in the back of it?
No. I don't think so, no.
Okay, okay.
But there's one on the R11, which is about 40% larger than the R8.
Okay.
And I've been using a DS on the R11 and Wolfgang also. And I find the DS extremely interesting in all.
I'm sorry, you're cutting out.
Yeah, Pierre, you froze. You have to repeat what you said. And while Pierre is coming back, if anybody else would like to present, if you could put a note in the chat if you have something you'd like to present.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'll stop sharing.
And Pierre, you'll have to, whatever you said got frozen. We didn't hear it.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what I'm saying is the dynamic spreader is also very, very interesting for a very low wind, very light winds. I've been using a DS on the R11, which is about 40% bigger than the R8. And Wolfgang also used it. And I find it interesting because if the wind picks up a little bit, we still have the same pull on the line, and we don't really have the camera going up and down, and it's much more stable. So it's a great product.
That's nice. So it kind of self-regulates. Yeah, if you got pictures of that, Pierre, that would be awesome. If you wouldn't mind sending a picture with that installed.
Absolutely. And I really look forward to receiving the one that you sent me back in March.
we built one, was ready to ship it, and then the pandemic hit, and literally all roads to Tahiti were closed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Forever, almost.
No, it'll arrive one day, so no problem.
Mine took 2 months.
Oh, okay.
That's good.
I spent most of the 2 months in Chicago airport, actually.
Well, I think mine is also stuck in Chicago, yeah.
Postal holiday.
You might have to come to Chicago to meet. All right,
cool.
James, you want to present? You said you had something you'd like to, anybody has stuff to present.
I have a very short thing to present, actually, James. Interesting bit of CAP stuff. I don't know whether this is going to work. I'm going to try and share a screen.
There you go.
Can you see that?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Okay, Totnes is it's quite a small town, maybe 9,000 people altogether, and like lots of places in England, it's a desirable place to live. So developers want to build lots more houses, and there've been a lot of development, maybe over the last few years, something like 800 houses, which put a big strain on the infrastructure because they haven't built any new infrastructure. Anyway, the picture you're looking at, if you are looking at it, is looking down on one of these new developments, so about 150 houses, and it's looking at gardens. And I've taken lots and lots of photos. I'm very interested in the development of Totnes from a planning point of view. And I've, I think, taken maybe 8 or 9 visits to this thing while these houses were being built. Anyway, the last time I went there was sometime last year, but about a month ago, one of the residents phoned me up and said, I see you've been putting photos on Flickr of my garden with me in it. And she didn't like it. And several of her neighbors didn't like it either, that I got photos of their gardens. And they asked me to take them down. So of the 60 or so photos I have of this site on Flickr, I mean, I've taken maybe 1,000 altogether, but there were 60 on Flickr. I've taken down something over 50 of them because they, like this one, concentrate on gardens. And if you look carefully at that picture, there actually is somebody sitting in their garden there. Has that happened to any of you? Have ever you taken photos and been asked to take them down because they've got people in them?
No.
I had an incident like that, which involved marijuana cultivation.
Don't they have to be recognizable?
Oh, sorry.
When you look at this photo on Flickr, and if you download it, the original is quite large. It's probably a 5 megabyte, 6 megabyte image at least. So you can see quite a lot of detail. And I appreciate that. I tend to specialize in taking these sort of urban, well, suburban, you would call them anywhere else, photos, and they are an invasion of privacy. I do recognize that. And it has made me much more careful now about the sort of photos I put on Flickr. It doesn't stop me taking the photos, but I don't put them on Flickr anymore because quite clearly some people regard it as an invasion of privacy.
I notice in the middle of this picture there's a staircase up to some sort of area which seems to me to be an invasion of everybody else in the streets privacy.
Yeah, I have to say this development is about the worst possible development you can imagine. The gardens that you can see are sort of peculiar shapes because the developers have tried to squash as many houses in as possible. And,
you see there's a ladder up to a red raised area which looks like you can look over everybody else's garden. It's crazy.
Well, you've been to Totnes, you know that this development is on a very steep hill, so it climbs up a hill. So it's not a wonderful place to have a house actually, except you do get really good views if they're facing the right way. But for reasons best known to the developer, hardly any of the houses face the right way. They have really boring views. But the developer made a lot of money, and but as I said, it has put a real worry on my putting things on Flickr because being asked to take down something like 80 or 85% of the photos in a couple of albums is not nice.
No.
Dave,
have to ask the UK government to raise that height limit a little bit.
It's about the rules on privacy that until recently, if you're in a public place, you can take any photos you like. But now in the UK, that's no longer really true. You can't rely upon the law anymore because people will reinterpret it for themselves. It's got to do maybe with the European whole thing to do with photos. I mean, there are countries in Europe where you're not allowed to take photos of public things. Like in Brussels, you cannot legally take a photo of the Atomium, which is a huge sculpture in the middle of Brussels, but it's copyrighted and you cannot take a photo, or at least you can't publish a photo. Look it up on Wikipedia and there's a big black blob where it is, because they can't put on Wikipedia a picture of the Atomium. What's it called? Panoramic right? Panoramic view, something like that.
Yeah, I've ran into that a little bit. I forget what was the name of. There's a geodesic structure somewhere in Europe, Brussels maybe. There's a name for it. It's like steel balls, but it's
That's the Atomium. Yeah, it's a model of the iron atom that was built.
Yeah. So apparently you can't take
one of these
pictures
big
of that.
international fairs.
Yeah, apparently that's
The architect copyrighted it.
Yeah, but I got a whole bunch of pictures of that squared up somewhere. All right, James, you've been waiting. You want to present something, a couple things?
Yeah.
Do I need to unshare this picture?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, stop sharing and then James.
How do I do that?
Go to the green button at the bottom, I think, where you hit share.
Yeah, the green button isn't at the bottom anymore. Oh yeah, here we are. Stop share. I've got it.
It seems like Google Earth would blur those lines a little bit, you know, the resolution. At some point, as Google Maps and all that stuff get higher resolution, you're going to end up with similar kind of issues. So I would think if you can't recognize the people faces, that would be one line to draw. I don't know. That's a big dilemma.
Yeah, or you can go to Planet Lab, and for a little bit of money, you can get a picture anywhere on the planet down to 30 centimeter resolution.
You can. What's that called?
Planet Lab. Planet. Like Earth is a planet. Planet
Okay.
Lab.
Interesting.
Based in San Francisco, and they do sun synchronous. You know, they probably have, I don't know, 100 satellites up right now.
So they have good lawyers, or money trumps copyright laws?
I guess if you buy the image from them and don't post it.
Oh, yeah, sure.
You know, spy agencies use these all the time. But
How do you feel about your privacy now?
but the resolution has really improved, even for what the public. So it's 30 centimeters. You know, just buy it anything you want. That's pretty small. You know, 30 centimeters. It's not huge.
What?
All right, James, you're up.
Okay, yeah, hi. So thanks everybody. I thought I would just take an opportunity to remember Simon Harbord, who died on the 4th of July, just 1 year ago. Hopefully you can see the screen I'm sharing.
Yeah.
Keynote speaker comes from Inverary, Scotland. If you browse the net much, you've probably come across Simon's site. And Simon Harbord is one of the most inventive, free-thinkingest, eccentric KAPers of us all. He's also one of the biggest, and has taken wonderful stuff around the British Isles. And his title is, "What the hell are you doing up there?" Which all of us have heard at least once. Simon. Excuse me.
What the hell am I doing here? I feel I'm the last person that should be talking to you about how to do all this. But the title is really not what am I doing here, it's what the hell are you doing up there? So I've kind of done my talk around, you can probably see in the background there, a kind of mind map.
got a lot more clearing to do yet, so there should be some nice blacks coming in. The fix is getting exhausted. Well, we've got some. I'm going to do one more. I can do so much better.
Simon was a great guy. He was the closest capper I had to a neighbour, and him and I came from different sides of the world almost. Yeah, despite the fact he was English and I was Scottish, but that's another story. He was an adopted Scot, and he was I'm an engineer, and I'm very analytical. Simon, although he was an engineer, was a very artistic person, and he approached things from a different way. And in some ways we clashed, in other ways we were the opposite of each other, and that was very productive. So I miss him a lot. So we normally say tight lines, but for Simon, it's slack lines. So just very quickly, I was going to show you a picture of the very last shoot I did before lockdown. Here in the UK, we've been restricted quite a lot. I'm not allowed to travel more than 5 miles from home for many months now. So I thought I would just show you, if I can find it, the last aerial panorama I took. This is a place not too far away from here. It's called the Great Polish Map of Scotland, and it was lost for many years. It was made by Polish soldiers just after the Second World War, and what you'll find is that in the garden of this hotel is that. It's the largest relief map in the world. It's 50 meters square, and it's absolutely huge. You can see park benches here, display board.
Yeah.
There's a bench there. And what's amazing about it is if you hit there, it takes you right back to where you started.
And is that a lake that it's in? Water?
Yeah,
Like
it has its own pond, and that's the sea round about it.
Wow.
It's really quite an amazing thing. It's all made of concrete. It's made of a huge quantity of concrete, so much concrete the Poles couldn't afford it. So the higher mountains are made of bully beef tins, which are a way of filling out the mountains, and they're just shells round about. But
wait a minute. What's a bully beef tin? That doesn't.
It's a sort of like corned beef is what we have called in the UK. Does anybody have an American term for corned beef?
Yeah. Oh, so the tins themselves.
Yeah, so they use the tins from meat products to
make the
make the mountains fill out the space. I'll put a link to this on if people want to get a.
That's very interesting.
So that was my last, but unfortunately it was 6 months ago, and that's a really sad thing about it. So that's all I had to say. Thank you very much indeed, and let's see what other flying people have been doing.
Thanks, James. Great job on the Simon video.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
We got about 5 minutes or so left on the original scheduled time, although we can run over. There's no problem with that. But before we do, I wanted to also thank Chris for all the years for the KAP forum and the treasures that we have stored up there. And I know we've been through a couple of tough patches where we couldn't get at it. And I want to thank you for whatever magic you're able to run with the administrators out of the university there. So it's much appreciated, and it's a hidden gem. I just hope we don't lose it. But anyway, thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm delighted that we're still going. It's the time may come when this software gives up the ghost. It's gotten to be fairly old. There's not a way to renew it with the current staff. So if we go radio silent at some point, I'll post notices over at the Flickr group. And I'll cast out if anybody is sort of computer savvy and interested in hosting things. I'm happy to work with you to shift it over to some other site.
Yeah, that's a big, big undertaking, but important one.
So it is preserved though, right? There are backups or some way to. I mean, what would it take to lose everything inadvertently? Could they just shut it off? Would you lose the data, or is it retrievable? There's a lot of good stuff
I back
there.
up the data periodically.
Okay.
It's a SQL file, so it's a database file. So to actually get to it once it's backed up, you really have to have an instance of the software running.
Okay.
Which we use something called Vanilla Forums. This forum dates back to 1996.
Yeah.
It used to be Microsoft Front Page. And so while the data would exist, being able to get at it in a useful fashion would be a challenge.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, maybe that's
James, if you like, I can show some impressions from Fanu.
Yes, please. You just need to share your screen.
Yeah, okay. Just a moment. The green button.
Green button at the bottom says share screen, and then it'll give you some options.
Yeah.
You know, if you have.
Okay, just 3 minutes.
Yeah.
You see the photos, so I don't have to explain them, but I want to say, Mike Leduc, I think your dynamic spreader is the most ingenious inventions in the last decades. I did not use a delta for about 20 years because I was told, oh, my lateral spar broke, so I did not trust it. And then I saw your videos with a dynamic spreader in combination with the recommendation of Pierre. I used the R8 delta, and now it's for me the ultimate kite tool. And I also use the delta with a tail, a fuzzy tail. And so I have very stable conditions, and Pierre knows last spring we made our KAP excursion and we had extreme wind conditions, and then at the castle the dynamic spreader, the R8 delta, the fuzzy tail all fits together. And there is another effect of the dynamic spreader. To reduce the wind resistance of the kite line, I use a thin Dynama line, just 0.4 millimeter. And so the dynamic spreader makes the flight very soft. So it's a perfect tool to get good results. And the photos you see here from Farney are just made with the R8, a fuzzy tail, the dynamic spreader, and the Dynama line. So thank you all for your input.
Wolfgang, we don't see your photos. You'll have to hit that share button. You have to select the screen, and there's another button you got to hit to click share, I think.
Yeah, okay, just a moment.
So we still don't see your...
share, yeah, okay.
There you go. Now we see them. I see the sun. Now I see them.
Okay.
You're good.
And maybe these are some impressions that may make you hungry for Faune next year. Here I used slackline. I learned by Simon Hubbard. So once Monghi, my wife, and I visited Simon and his wife in Scotland. So it was a very good time, and I still remember quite vivid. This year there was not official kite meeting. These are only kite vacationers.
That's great.
And the beach of Farnö is about 10 kilometers long, and there is a lot of space for everybody. And if you go from the top to the south and back, you see sometimes a quite new scenery.
Yeah, it looks beautiful.
Yeah,
Were people at Farnö this year?
Yeah,
That's
only
awesome.
vacationers.
Yeah, we should have had Kite Aerial Photographer vacationers.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course. But the international flights did not work. So
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. Yes.
and we just arrived after midnight in the morning when the Danish border was opened again.
Wow.
And we were in duty to stay at least 6 nights. So it's a kind of vacation, of course. And so the impressions you can get on Farnö are endless.
Yeah, and Wolfgang, I think we can announce the dates of Farnö next year,
Yes.
which are going to be June 12 to June 19.
Yes.
And we'll try to have that KAPiZoom2020 organized in 21.
Yes, and there is a tradition. Normally, always, the kite meeting on Farnö is in the week before midsummer.
Right.
So the people come maybe Sunday, the first weekend before midsummer, and stay about 8 days, 10 days, 14 days. That's traditional. So the schedule you may find in the internet is not reduced to 4 or 5 days, but normally planned for 10 days, 8 days, something like that. Yeah, that's,
Are you hoping to go?
yes, I
Kevin?
will go.
Are you hoping to go?
Yeah, I'm planning on going.
Good. And Pierre, presumably.
Yeah.
On Blake?
I'm going to try and go also. I signed up this year, but of course we couldn't get over there.
And Wolfgang, are you planning to organize the KAPi Germany afterwards, or no?
Yes, but only for few persons, or self-organizing like it happened in California.
Okay.
I just can give advice. Sometimes it's not easy to get this organized. Let's wait, and I will tell more possibilities later.
Okay.
Good.
All right, sounds good. Anyone else would like to present on anything?
Not especially. I can show you my next cap rig very, very briefly, which I hope to fly in the next few days. If Wolfgang would like to stop sharing his screen.
Oh, just a moment. Yeah.
Yeah, so here we go. This is my, I bought a new toy. You know, you've seen on the forum, I'm into these 360-degree cameras. So this is the latest purchase.
Yeah,
it's one of these. This is another Eco Theta, and it's the Z1, which is the creme de la creme apparently. So hopefully this is going up in the next couple of days here in Sark. There's my, there we go. And that will probably be only my, I don't know, I think probably my 4th flight of the year so far. Things have been so quiet here, so that's my plans in the coming days.
You have to take out a mortgage.
Yeah. They are expensive.
James, what kind of camera was used for that panel that you had?
I think that's for Wolfgang.
Oh, awesome. That's, yeah.
Got the GoPro Globe, yeah.
By the way, I have a comment about James' camera there. When we had Capica, that was 2016.
Yeah.
And we used that, we used a Prism 5, Stowaway 5 Delta to lift that camera in 25 miles per hour plus winds.
I remember that.
James, what was the weight? What's the weight of that rig? Is it 2.5 pounds, 3 pounds?
No, it's probably just under 2 pounds. The one we flew in that wind, and there's a shot looking straight down into the middle of that ex-accommodation block on, is it Treasure Island it's called?
Yeah. Yes, Treasure Island.
Yeah.
So that was using GoPro 2s. These are 3 pluses. And the problem with the 2 was that the firing all the cameras at the same time was difficult, whereas these ones I've hacked it to, they fire within 100th of a second, so that reduces quite a lot of the problems. But I'm not quite sure, the new Theta, I'm not sure what resolution it gives, Kevin. But this is getting pretty old hat now, because what they won't do is the heroes still give the same still resolution, despite the fact the video is getting better. They're not improving their still performance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Treasure Island, for those people who went there, I don't know if you realise, those buildings have all been flattened.
Oh, okay.
Really? Wow.
Have a look on Google Maps. Treasure Island in the bay. Yeah, they've been flattened. I don't know what they're going to do with them, but I noticed it a couple of months ago. I was just
yeah, I managed to get a panel that looked straight down into the central architrave of the place, and you, I think, got quite a good still single shot from a higher altitude. That
I did, yeah. I got
the whole building.
My Sony, quite a tight one though. So I had the circle, and you could just see the arms coming out.
But, yeah, it was frighteningly windy for me. It was certainly. I was glad to have some of you guys around about me to make sure that it worked.
I couldn't believe the pull. I mean, I had the kite, the Stowaway 5. I mean, it's 5 feet across Delta. Production kite. I had maybe 35 feet of tail on it. It glued itself to the sky, but the pull. I think I flew it on 200, maybe 300-pound test even. Oh, tremendous. I had a harness around my leg, and
yeah, I remember.
So you could go with it, right?
Oh my god!
And I think that what ended up happening was you had all that to deal with, and me, because I was standing at right angles to it to try and make sure you got the camera above the center of the.
Yeah.
And I'm shouting at you, this way, that way, this way.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun, and you did a nice job of putting it up on your site. I really the photograph. You can go. Yeah.
Thanks for your help, Ken. Without you, it would not have happened.
That was a memorable day.
We were a team.
And that Stowaway Delta is a very nice kite. I've now used that exclusively for high winds. You know, anything above 30 knots.
I think
I
it
used
was
to use Nighthawk, but I don't anymore.
Here, do you remember?
Enough to give me a lift. I had nothing that would fly that day, and then Kevin got my camera up, and when it came down, I had this beauty, which is one of my prize photos. I keep that right here on the wall. So thanks, Kevin.
That's right. I borrowed Michael Lievsky's fishing kite for that one.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul's fishing kite. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I know we ran over now a little bit. Was this of fun for you guys? We might do this again, maybe. And I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes.
6 months from now or something like that. I'm just trying to get an idea if there's an interest or not.
Definitely.
Yeah. I might get some Cap Mojo back.
Yeah. I kind of just pulled this together on a whim, so I'm glad it got enough interest that we can pull it together. So maybe we'll do a wintertime one or something like that in the for the northern hemisphere when we're kind of locked down. And
so you're advertising there.
So are you going to Notre Dame de Mont?
She's holding up something.
Yeah.
Sue?
You're on mute.
Sue, you're muted.
You're muted. Are you going to the Cap Festival in Notre Dame de Mont?
I don't know, but it's back to front on there. But it is going on this year, and it's the
August 21.
to 25th of August.
Yeah.
Nuage, like a cloud, and you get put up and all sorts groups in groups, very informal. But it is going ahead. That's on Facebook. Festival Common Nuage. COMME number 1 Nuage NUAGE. It's official. It's going on. And Ken keeps saying, what's the weather like in France in August? And so we might go. Thank you.
All right, good. Well, the feedback I got there looks like this will be, maybe we can target something 6 months from now, sometime December or January. When we got the cold up north, we can maybe pull something like this together. And I'm certainly willing to kick it off, so it's not a big chore to do. So any last thoughts before we kind of wrap up?
No, just many thanks, Jim.
Yes.
Stay safe.
Anything else you've probably got all into trying to do some CAP photos.
Yeah. Yeah, and the only thing I
thanks,
didn't do, I was going to do about skip it now was
don't get too close to your monitor. You got to stay 6 feet back from the monitor with you guys.
Yeah, I encourage everyone to go fly kites and take pictures. And I was going to put up the, just a slideshow what we put in the KAPi Flickr group, but I'll skip that for now. I think you guys can see that.
Leave it open and we'll add some more. Well, I'll add some. I've
Yeah.
added nothing.
Yeah, add some. All right, well, we're going to say goodbye then. Thank you all for joining. Hopefully you had a good time here. I'm going to
Bye, everybody.
pull the plug on the recording, and I will send out an email with a link to where I stick it up on, probably on YouTube.
Okay, wonderful.
Refer
Thank you.
See how it comes
Thanks,
out.
Jim.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
This wraps up our first KAPiZoom 2020 virtual meeting. I want to thank all the KAPers for their contributions of photographs, videos, and stories that they told. A lot of good information was presented. Here's some additional links where individuals interested in kite aerial photography can find more information. So thanks again to everyone. Goodbye. Jim Powers signing off.